Hello and welcome to another episode of Garry Talks. I'm your host, Garry Kelly, and this week we have a special treat for you because recently, during the Galway Film Fleadh, I got to meet and interview the lovely Désirée Nosbusch and Tim Roth about their new movie, Poison. The film got its world premiere only a few weeks ago in Munich, and on the day of our podcast recording in the Galmont Hotel in Galway, Poison was due to get its Irish premiere the following night. And little did we know, it would actually go on to win the Peripheral Visions Award at the 2024 Galway Film Fleadh. And in my humble opinion, thoroughly deserved. So delighted to say that Poison did go on to become an award-winning movie at the Galway Film Fleadh, because it is a great, powerful film. It's very moving, and I think a lot of people will be able to relate to the characters and possibly the storyline itself. It's described as a love story, and it's about a mother and father returning to the cemetery where their son is buried, having not spoken to each other for over 10 years. The conversations that unfold are both beautiful and very real. It looks amazing. The director Désirée gives the audience space to allow their emotions to process everything. And the performances by Tim Roth and his co-star Trinity are so raw. As I said, it's a great film, and I hope you get to see it soon. But for now, here is Désirée and Tim. Enjoy. This is a GK Media podcast. Former actor, TV and radio personality, and now making her directorial feature debut with a movie. She also produced Désirée Nosbusch. And BAFTA Award winner and Oscar nominee Tim Roth, who starred in the iconic movies Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, The Hateful Eight, Rob Roy, and TV shows Tin Star and She-Hulk, who now stars in the European co-production Poison. Thank you both so much for joining me on Garry Talks.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you so much for having us, Garry. Why did his sound way better than mine?
But you're not a former actor. You're an actor.
I'm still an actor.
Oh,
yeah,
you're
I'm
still
an
acting.
actor.
Okay, because I thought you were done with acting.
No,
and
no,
now directing was your thing.
No.
Okay, I won't repeat that whole intro again, but it has been updated. Désirée, when I was reading your bio at first, I was saying, oh, I have so much in common with this lady. I mean, actor, radio personality. And then I realized...
Did you also host the Eurovision Song Contest?
No, I didn't,
okay,
which
good.
you did in 84.
Whoa, I forgot about that one.
You reminded me of like a Vanessa Paradis of
yes.
the 80s in France, because you were everywhere.
Yes.
You know,
well, that's the good part about being from a small country, which is Luxembourg, that you grow up, since you're surrounded by many borders, you grow up learning different languages, which opens up the world. And then if you want to, kind of go into, let's call it show business, you have to leave your country because in those days, I mean, I'm talking late 70s, early 80s, there was not a whole lot to be done in Luxembourg in that field. And so you just go and then you do a little here, a little there, and then, yeah.
Yeah, and like you're doing it from the age of 12.
I did, yes.
And then you decide at a young age to say, okay, I'm going to go to America and study acting in New York.
I saw the movie Fame. I was in Berlin at a big theater. I saw Fame and I thought, that's what I'm looking for. That is the feeling I'm looking for. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I was looking for, I don't know, I felt like I had to dance in the streets and jump on yellow cabs. I don't know, but it was a life feeling, a feeling of freedom. Tim is laughing. And we did not have that in Luxembourg. I knew I wanted something different than what I was experiencing back home, but I didn't know what it was. And when I saw the movie, I thought, that's what I want. And I packed my bags and I went to New York. And I was terribly disappointed when I went to the High School of Performing Arts. And they said to me, what do you want? And I said, well, I want to study here. And they said, but you can't. I said, why not? And they said, well, you're not an American citizen. Do your parents pay taxes in this country? I said, what do you mean my parents? No, my dad drives a truck in Luxembourg.
They didn't explain that you're in Fame, like.
So I couldn't, I didn't know it was a high school. It was a school that you had to live in. So so that was crushed my bubble there. But I found another school. I found the HB Studios with, in those days, thank God, still Uta Hagen and Herbert Berghoff, who were still teachers there. And I'd auditioned and got lucky and had, I think, the 4 best years one could have at that age to grow into this profession. Yeah.
And then you decide, actually, I want to do directing as well. And then you went to LA. Like, I'm curious about is what was constantly driving you?
Well, you always have to see where I'm coming from and what the business is like where I am. So it's not like, oh, let me do this, let me do that on top of it. There are also limitations in certain countries when it comes to our profession. And I just suddenly thought, I was working a lot in TV in France, but also mainly in Germany. And I got to a point where I thought, I feel like I'm repeating myself. I hate the feeling when I feel like it's stagnation and repeating myself. And I moved to LA because I was then married, and my then husband, father of my 2 children, moved to LA. He's a film composer, so I followed him. And suddenly here I was in LA, an actress from Luxembourg. They did definitely not need another actress in LA. So I thought, what the hell am I going to do? And so I thought maybe this is the moment to grow, to study, to try and find out. And if they don't give you the stuff that you want to do, then you have to create it for yourself. And so I did enroll at UCLA and started studying production and directing. And it was wonderful. I actually realized this is something I can see myself do down the road. And I did the first short film in 2001.
With Tippi Hedren.
With Tippi Hedren.
How cool is it that your first short is with a legend like that?
Lucky. I mean, I had a little script that she loved. I mean, I did send it out the way I did send out Poison, not because I knew somebody, but I just hoped that the material would speak for itself. And so I won a couple of awards, in Houston and Fargo. And then not unfortunately, but then it took me 20 years to gather the courage to do a feature. And that's what we're here for now today, Poison. But I have to say, it took me 20 years to get to that point, to dare and do it.
What were you afraid of?
It is a huge responsibility, and especially if you also produce it. I mean, I had a lot for a short movie. I had a lot of money. I had $100,000 for a short movie in those days that I got. I was supported by the Luxembourgish Film Fund on one hand, but I also got money from people. I never go to parties. I never go to dinners, but there I did. And I had important people sign checks on napkins, and I would call them up the next morning and say, so can I count on those 10,000? I need them for my movie. So I did do all of that. And then here we're speaking, it's suddenly you need a budget of $4 million. And I think it's a huge responsibility when people give you money to fulfill a dream or a vision. It kind of scared me. I wanted to be prepared. I wanted to feel ready. And it also took me 11 years to put Poison together. Okay. So it's not, I could have done it 10 years earlier, which maybe for the movie would have been a better time. I don't know. Times have changed in the past 10 years, but it took the time it took, and to get the budget, to get the right people. And so.
Well, congratulations on the movie. You. I got to see it a couple of days ago. And so I got a link to the screener, and I was working away in the office and things were busy. And I said, okay, got to put time aside now to watch this. And I just found that everything just slowed down for me, and I fell into the movie.
Oh, thank you.
Quite quickly, yeah.
Thank you. That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, but the other thing that I'm annoyed about is that I pretty much had a lump in my throat throughout. Yeah. And something I never experienced watching a screener, it's different in a cinema because you have that experience with the lights down, but sitting in an office, is I was kind of numb in my chair, and I watched all the way through the credits, and then it just came to a stop, and I had this numbness. I think because of the topic, a lot of us, unfortunately, can relate to the loss of a loved one in our lives. Mm-hmm. So it just, like, everything in it seems so real, so relatable. So well done.
Thank you so much for saying that, Garry. I will listen back to this a couple of times. Whenever I'm
feeling down.
I'm feeling down. I'm going to listen to this.
Because I could see the reflection of my eyes in the computer screen. And I was like, oh, they're like all watery.
It talks about the questions we all ask ourselves, and it pushes the right buttons, right? I mean, the material is so well written, and we all kind of recognize certain mechanisms that we have in relationships, and how we try to avoid certain topics. So.
But like even when I was 9 years of age, I lost my cousin who was 9.
Right.
And then I lost another cousin 2 years later who was 16.
Oh, God.
And even with the dynamic of the parents, it reminded me of the dynamic that they were going through at the time, because everyone deals with grief differently at a different stage and so on.
Yeah, we talked about it this morning, Tim and I. You cannot, that's something I learned. You cannot grieve together.
No.
You cannot. I mean, I remember I had something happen in my life to my son, and in those days, I was so upset that the father, we were already separated, but still, we were always very good at parenting our children to this day. But I was so upset that he would not sit there with me and grieve and help me to get through it. I made it about myself. It was about my son, I'm sorry, but I made it about myself. And he went home to his new wife and went through it with her. And I thought, how dare he? But it is. Everybody grieves differently. And that's something I really had to learn.
Yeah. And Tim, something that surprised me as well at the start of the movie was you get a cup of coffee when you're near the sea.
Oh, yeah.
And you get into your car and you see a child in the back of the car and you kind of make a funny face. And then you sit into the car and you make another reaction. And I said, the character, Lucas, has lost a son. And that's without any dialogue or anything.
And you did not know.
No, because I don't read the synopsis before watching a movie. I just go in blank slate, so I have no assumptions or anything. So I'm wondering, how did you nail that? Like what?
We were just on the beach and we just did it. I don't even know if it was scripted, to be honest.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, there you go.
No, that was not scripted.
What about if we do this?
Yes.
Yeah, that might be fun. And then I think I remember trying to make the kid laugh through the window, and he was a bit like, why is he doing that?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, just the tone changed instantaneously.
But I thought, that's something you're so brilliant at, Tim.
But I remember we did that towards the end of filming, right? I think that stuff.
No, that was
it at the beginning?
Tim, that was your first day.
Oh, is that right?
That was your first day in Holland before we went to Luxembourg.
Oh, that's right.
But Tim is so brilliant at, I'm sorry, may I?
You may, yeah.
He like all his preparation is very, very, very intense before you get started. Like, he will really ask all the questions. And I was so afraid sometimes that I might not have the answers. But he is so invested, and he really turns it upside down and takes it apart and puts it back together. And then when you start filming, he flies. May I call it that way? You just fly. You trust the moment.
Yeah, and I think for me, the thing is not to... I mean, you prepare, like you say, get ready, do all of your, whatever the preparation is different for every actor. But once you do that, you got to let it all go. And then it's in there somewhere, it's in you, and it's in there, but you never know what's going to happen. So your character will react differently to any given circumstance, and from take to take as well.
Right.
Depending on what's coming your way. So it's always good you got to be ready, but it's good to sort of roll with the punches. And that
it's like when you jumped on the table, on that concrete table by the sea before you get your cut. I mean, that's not scripted.
Okay.
But
I have
an image of that. And in that image, I can see the whole story of the movie. It's that bike that's tumbled over on the ground,
that's right,
and him standing there in the wind. So that is brilliant. I mean, you get so many gifts from this guy.
Just keep the cameras rolling.
On a daily basis, really.
But this, and you having, lots of experience professionally in acting. For you, Tim, as an actor, this script-wise must have been an actor's dream.
It was complicated in that our son was ill at the time. So, but that happened... I'm not sure if he was when I read it, or it's around the same time.
Around the same time, I remember.
So so it was a difficult one, but it had such a powerful effect on me anyway that independent of that, and so I spoke to my son about it before I went off to film it. So he was cool, and we talked during filming it as much as possible. It was a very difficult time, but it's rare that you get a script that has such an immediate impact. And one of the things that what was interesting about it is it's still read at that time. I think it read as a play.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But when I talked to Désirée about it, when we did the Zoom thing, courtesy of COVID, it was about that. It was about, okay, what do you do here? What about if you take this out? What about if you what about ifism started pretty early on.
Right.
And you could see, I could see that working with Désirée would be sort of a complete experience. 'Cause sometimes when I read it and I thought, it does have that theatrical feeling, you need to turn it into a movie here a bit more, have to do that. If sometimes there are directors who are learn your lines and hit your marks, and there's no flexibility, and it would have suffered in the hands of somebody who directed in that way. Most films do, but it would have been a difficult process, which I wouldn't have done. So it was really about an incredible story, an extraordinary idea, actually, of making a play in the first place about this conversation. But then who's making it? And that's how it...
which is always important.
Yeah.
And just to mention your son Cormac as well, who passed away in 2022 at the age of 25, and my deepest condolences.
Thank you.
And as a parent, it's the worst nightmare. When you revisit your experience of Poison and the making of it, does it bring all those memories back as well of when Cormac was sick?
No, I mean, yes, it does. I mean, I haven't seen the film, but the memories that I have were during. There was a lot of complications about what we were going through, and there was also the film, and in a way, they're all part and parcel of the same time, and a lot of them very, very happy too. But I tend to, I suppose, I move forward, and I move forward with him. He's always with me wherever I go. And that's how, and so I think he'd laugh at this conversation right now. He had a good sense of humor too.
Yeah. And you can relate.
I had a hard time. I had a very hard time when Cormac passed. I felt so guilty that I did this movie. I remember writing to Tim saying, I felt like my movie had become real life. And we held the movie back. We said, we're not going to release this until Tim gives us a sign that he's even willing for this to go out there. I would have, if Tim would have given me a sign and said, I don't want this movie to ever go out there and be seen, I would have respected it, because can't even put into words how much it hurts to know that Nikki and Tim and Hunter and the whole family went through that. It's just, I have no words for it.
Yeah. But I do think, having seen it from a young child's perspective of, losing people my age and how it affected the parents, that's what I think is so important about the movie that you made, is to show how complicated it is. Like, it's described in the synopsis as a love story about a couple reunited, but there's loneliness there, and it's the reality of it. There's no kind of dancing to the rainbow at the end of this. But at the same time, it's not all dark and sad. It's just.
And I like to say that there can only be this amount of grief if there was a huge amount of love. So I always try to kind of put that there. Yeah. I have a really close girlfriend who lost her son as well in Los Angeles. And I can't say I went through it with her, because nobody goes through it, with somebody. I mean, but I was there, and I think that's why this play touched me also so deeply, because it is also what Lucas says to Edith in the movie. He said, but what if we had another child? Would that child have to do with parents that cannot be happy anymore? I mean, would that child not also have the right to have happy parents? And that's the thing, you know, you have to give yourself permission to live again. And I don't, but it's easily said, but very hard done, you know?
Yeah,
but, I mean, grief, but love.
Yeah,
Love
so
is
true.
there, you know?
Tim, you've worked with directors before making their directorial debut.
Many, yeah.
So obviously it works, but has there been times that it just hasn't worked?
I'm trying to think. I don't think so. I've always, it's never been an issue for me at all. Oh, actually, yes, there was one.
He had forgotten about that one.
Yeah. I think it was her first feature, and it was a struggle. But it was a very difficult location that we were in, and all those things. But nevertheless, but generally, it's never a problem. It's not everyone's first time on that set, and so what you do is you make the situation as productive and as simple as possible. It wasn't your first time on set. You've been on set as an actor, so you came with your own agenda, and then you got me, and it's me and Trina who sort of got you back and everything, and we just went about our business.
I mean, I had to overcome this. I was so humble, but the fact that two wonderful actors like Trina and Tim would even consider doing that with me. That was my big thing. I had to overcome that and tell myself every morning I have a right to step on set.
But did you have moments of crisis during?
No.
So once the camera started rolling,
there's always moments where you go, did I make the right decision? I mean, I also have to say I had a wonderful DOP, Judith Kaufman.
Oh my gosh,
who
she's
just
amazing.
is a rock. You know, she had my back.
Do you remember that time we ran away? In
the car. She was waiting.
With the cinematographer in the back, is it?
She was,
it was just me and her.
It was just her. And the smile on her face.
She has such mischief.
She's wonderful.
She's brilliant.
And so I was surrounded by really amazing people, artists, and just human beings who did have my back. The crisis. I mean, if there was a crisis, it was more maybe me on the drive home at night, thinking, did I give them what they needed? Did I make the right choices? Did I, moments like that, moments of doubt. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't wait to go back in the morning. So, we had 4 seasons in a day, which you guys here in Ireland are used to, but we had to deal with it on.
Yeah. Imagine this is summer when you look outside in Ireland.
I mean, we were stuck in a cemetery that.
And it was an active cemetery, so you were stopping and starting.
The people of that town were so kind and so graciously. They pretty much handed us the key to the cemetery.
They were incredible.
They were incredible.
Yeah.
Not once was Tim or were Trina and Tim disturbed by people coming, watching, or asking for an autograph. They were really, really respectful.
There were a couple of times when we had to step back.
Because somebody had
really
passed and they had a funeral, so we just had promised them we would get all the gear out, everything out. So that was, but other than that, we were pretty. I mean, we finished 2 days early.
That was crazy.
I mean, when do you hear that on a set? We suddenly went, okay, now what? But they were so good. They were so well prepared. It was like, okay, now what? We can pretend we're shooting. Let's shoot some birds now. But we were done.
Yeah.
No, it's extraordinary.
So.
And talking about being bothered when you're on set, I was listening to a podcast recently with Conan O'Brien and Martin Short, and Conan was saying, he loves the selfies and he'll happily do them, and Martin Short saying, no, he's no time for them. He tells people no, and they don't know is he joking or not. What's your relationship with what comes with fame?
When you're working, and I tend so you have to set up a system where that can be the case. Because it can knock you sideways when you're in the middle of doing something. It's harder when you're. I've done things where I've been filming in the street with a camera that isn't announcing its presence, and that can be a bit tricky. Generally, people don't expect to see you, so you're all right. I don't know.
If you go walking down Shop Street now and you're.
I'm right now. I'm on. Holiday in France, and I go out I keep my head down and move fast.
Okay.
But generally people are very nice. It depends on the person. You know, if quite often where we are now, people just give you a wave and a thumbs up and keep on moving. It's so sort of dignified and nice. But then there's the people that just sort of corner you.
Yeah.
And that's tricky. So it's about how they go about their business as well. Really.
Yeah.
But it doesn't bother me that much. I don't think I'm that kind of person.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm known in an odd way. Whereas but for people who are superhero movie type world, that's messed up. They can't. People who can't go anywhere in their
That's
lives.
tough. That
That's
must be
heartbreaking.
tough.
Yeah. I don't really suffer from it in that way.
I was looking at a clip of the cafe in Pulp Fiction
Oh yeah.
during the week, and there was the scene with yourself, Amanda Plummer,
Yeah.
and Samuel L. Jackson. And I met Amanda Plummer years ago, and I
I love
interviewed her.
Mandy
She's like crazy
I
in a
love
lovely
it.
way, but
Yeah.
like crazy,
Yeah.
crazy good fun.
Yeah.
But I'm curious. You know, you see these relationships on screen, and sometimes you're hoping, like in real life, these people are friends. But are there certain people you've worked with over the years who have remained friends with you since?
Yeah, but oddly, there's that thing of your worlds go in different directions, and then you see each other sort of 10 years later, and it's like, where did we just leave it? You know, there are those. There's an actor that I haven't seen in years and years and years. I'm about to work with, so we've just started that communication up again. Just been texting with each other and on the phone with each other, and it's been really, really lovely because that's on the horizon and we can catch up. You know, so it's kind of like that because you're thrown into so many different directions all the time.
Yeah.
But
If you're lucky
sometimes
enough to
because
work.
it is so intense when you work together and you spend long months together, that when you meet after a couple of years, you kind of pick up where you left off.
Yeah, and you got stories to tell.
Yeah, you got stories to tell. I mean,
True.
I'm really friends with Declan Conlon here that I work with in the series here, but it's not like we talk on the phone once a week, not at all. But we always, pick up where we left off, and it's just because the time you do spend together is very intense.
And have you gotten to venture around Galway this week and see the city?
I just arrived last night, but this morning I was up at 8, up and down the street, got my coffee at my favorite place, walked towards Salt Hill just because, towards the tower, just for reminiscing, and I adore it here. I love it.
And Tim, have you been to Galway before?
About, I don't know, over 30 years ago, 35 years ago, something like that, with a girlfriend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says, yeah.
that memorable
No,
trip.
I didn't see, or I don't remember seeing the sort of the town in that way. I remember
It's really
it was
busy
right
now.
by the water.
Yeah.
It was not the river, but the sea or whatever. So
Probably
it
the
was,
Claddagh
it was all a bit
area
that,
more
yeah.
than...
Yeah.
There was little ruffian kids I remember I really liked. Little tough kids with golf clubs. And they would go onto the golf course and use it behind the posh people's backs, who they had a lot of very fond terms for. And I always remember really liking them.
Oh, yeah. I think they're still down there at the golf course.
Good, I hope so. They're running it.
You mentioned that you're working on a movie at the moment. I know you're due to play Henry
just finished.
Kissinger. Is
Yeah,
that when you finished?
No, God, no. We'll do that next year. Kissinger one's next year. No, I just finished doing a thing in Osijek, just outside Zagreb. So I went over and helped them with that. Again, it was a little independent film, so I went in there about the war that happened there. And then I'm not sure. When I go back to home, then I think I'm probably, the way it's going will be Australia and then 2 films in England back to back. So it's quite crazy coming up.
And just the thing I wanted to ask on the Henry Kissinger movie, because you're playing him and it's such a controversial figure in history, like what's pulling you into that?
It was a book. It was first of all, it was a director, it was a first-time director who I worked with when I first went to America, Jeff Stanza. So he asked me to read it, and he wrote a book about this monster, and then it's a really funny book too. And then the script landed, and it's brutal, but it's funny. It's a very brilliantly put together piece. So, and he came to me Is that all right? Oh, God, I suppose I have to. But also, he was one of those people that really pissed my dad off.
Yeah.
Politically, so kind of, he's one of those ones I owe it to my dad. Have a crack at that guy.
And Désirée, just finally to wrap up, I mean, we're upstairs in the Galmont Hotel. Downstairs is brewing with wannabe directors, you know. Some have done shorts, some want to make a feature. What would you say to them today, having gone through it now?
Hey, just follow your dreams. If you have a story that you think needs to be told, just go for it. It might take you a while. Like I said, it took me 11 years, but don't take no as an answer. Just go for it. And I think, I think that's the only way, you know, because otherwise you'd never make it.
Yeah, life regrets.
No, absolutely. Go for it.
Thanks so much for joining me today on the show, and continued success to you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.